think that was my thumbs up from Teresa. So uh, welcome everyone. My name's Elisa Jones, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's interview session. And we are so glad that you're here joining us for week 2 of the 2025 Zero Waste Month interview series. And today we're going to go back to basics. So we'll be talking about restoring simple, beneficial habits that once kept our homes, our own bodies, the planet clean and cared for. Just a little bit about Zero Waste Month. Zero Waste Month is an annual campaign that's put on by Race to Zero Waste. And during Zero Waste Month, we turn the race to zero waste into a sprint. So every October, we ask everyone to make an extra effort to try something new in your journey towards zero waste and to share that with everyone on social media. If you haven't been to our website, which is zerowastemonth.org, please head over there after this, and there are all sorts of amazing resources for you. We've got an activation toolkit that you can sign up for that has all sorts of different hosting events you can put together. Very easy, zero waste potlucks, picnics, Halloween costume swaps, etc. We have a zero waste events map where if you want to tell us what you're doing, we'll put it on our global map to let everyone know that you're participating. We do Zero Waste Month bingo, so check us out on Instagram for that. And then there's also a download of the Go Zero Waste app. And in that, there's a challenge from October 1st through 31st. And there are 3 levels of challenges you can compete: easy, normal, easy, medium, hard. And you gain points and you can challenge your friends and family and coworkers. But 2 of the highest scorers will win a $100 gift card. So worth checking out. A little bit about Race to Zero Waste is a nonprofit organization that brings zero waste concepts to life by taking action. Race to Zero Waste is devoted to educating the public on zero waste principles and achieving an equitable circular economy. Race to Zero Waste envisions a world where a zero waste lifestyle is automatic, it's accessible, and it's convenient for everybody. I want to introduce our team today. We have Myrna Gold, who's going to do the Zoom chat. And after we talk to our guests tonight, we're going to open it up to a Q&A if you have questions for that. And then also if you want to share some of your zero waste challenges that you're going to tackle this month. So we'd love to hear from you either in the Q&A or what you're doing. And then we also have our YouTube live stream chat, and Teresa Bradley will be on that. So hello, Teresa out there. Okay, with that, I am very pleased to introduce our guest today to you. First off, we have Rebecca Prince-Ruiz, and she is the founder of Plastic Free July. Rebecca, the Plastic Free July is a global movement that helps millions of people and organizations be part of the solution to plastic pollution. Regarded as Australia's best-known plastic activist, in 2021, Rebecca received the prestigious WA Australian of the Year Local Hero Award, and I believe that's Western Australia. Rebecca is a seasoned presenter to global audiences, media spokesperson, TEDx speaker, and sustainability professional who is motivated to care for people and the planet. She's a Churchill Fellow and the co-author of Plastic Free, the inspiring story of a global environmental movement and why it matters. She believes that by changing our relationship with plastic and challenging our consumption together, we can take action to end plastic waste and enjoy a healthy world. So welcome to Rebecca. We also have Thomasina Joseph. And I apologize a second. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. A lot of talking. Thomasina is from the community, the Clean Green Neighborhood Alliance, and she's their community engagement coordinator. Thomasina is also the executive director of the Alliance and aims to mitigate plastic waste in underserved communities through education, empowerment, and engagement. Her initiatives primarily focus on the Scotlandville and Old South Baton Rouge areas of Metro Baton Rouge, where she is committed to creating awareness and promoting education and engagement in recycling efforts to reduce plastic waste. Thomasina is unwavering in her commitment to serving North Baton Rouge with strategies to collaborate and expand to other areas of Metro Baton Rouge. She envisions fostering a culture rooted in kindness, care, and compassion, while championing the 4 pillars of sustainability and access to essential resources for all communities. And then finally, we have Stacy Savage, and she's the founder and CEO of Zero Waste Strategies. In 2013, Stacy Savage founded Zero Waste Strategies, LLC, an environmental consulting firm specializing in waste reduction. She works with businesses, government agencies, and institutions to reduce waste for increased revenue, deeper customer loyalty, employee empowerment, and a green marketing edge. Her clients include Dell, AT&T, Apple, Nestle Purina, Kohler, Boston University, and the city of Austin, among many others. Welcome, Stacy, Thomasina, and Rebecca. So I wanted to get started with just kind of a basic question for you. And maybe we could start with Rebecca. How did you get your start in zero waste? So what is sort of your first basic thing you realized you were doing or wanted to do that got you started?
Thanks for the question. So I think in some ways I started in childhood because my mother was, we lived on a farm and we didn't have a lot of money and the shops were a long way away. So we just used what we had. So I think I grew up with a bit of that mindset from a child, growing veggies and having eggs and wearing secondhand clothing. But in terms of the work that I now do on plastics, what got me started was visiting my local waste facility. We talk about throwing things away, but there is no away, it goes somewhere. And so by visiting my local waste facility, in particular where our recycling goes to get sorted, that was for me my aha moment that led me into working on the plastics and waste issue in particular, seeing how much we produce and then the complexities around sorting it and recycling. So for me, it was seeing my own waste and the results of my consumption and those daily choices firsthand that got me started working in this space back in 2011.
Nice. Very good. Thomasina, what about you? What was sort of your basic zero waste moment, or when did you connect that there might have been things that you were doing or someone in your life was doing? How did you get started?
This actually becomes a full circle moment for me, because my grandfather used to always keep a plastic bucket and a picker in his truck. And so everywhere we went, he was always picking up trash or picking up things and leaving a space cleaner than where he found it. And like Rebecca, myself, I went to the recycling facility to see where everything goes and how it's sorted. And so it just kind of made me realize, like, I'm not doing this right. And so in doing the work with the Clean Green Neighborhood Alliance, that made me want to bring that to communities that didn't have the resources or the access to being able to get to recycling how it needs to be done correctly. And so once you see all of that piling up and it's like, I'm partially responsible for this, it makes that aha moment, like there are things that I can do that are better. And then when I think back to even, spending time with my grandparents, everything was glass or aluminum foil. So you drunk out of mason jars, everything was really reused in the home. So like I say, this becomes a full circle moment for me actually doing this work now and expanding out to communities, what that looks like and being able to share that information and education about that.
Thank you. It's great. So Stacy, what about you? What's your basic zero waste moment? What got you started?
Well, it has to go back to, again, my childhood, as Rebecca was saying, and Thomasina as well, I grew up under the brown hazy skies and rotten egg smells of Southeast Texas, under the oil and gas industry. My dad worked for Chevron for 45 years. My mom worked for Texaco 35 years. And the oil and gas industry has an absolute stranglehold on that local economy. There is really no other lucrative position where you can put three girls through college. And so pretty much anyone who works out at the plants, they're complicit in the pollution of our community, but you don't blame them, you blame the system. There's the local government, there's the state government, there are corporate loopholes, and it's really lit a fire under me for many decades regarding the injustice that happens in these communities, especially the fence line communities that are butted up against these corporate polluting facilities.
Absolutely.
And so, that's not necessarily revolving around waste, but it was my eye-opening moment to environmental issues. And it made me pay a lot more attention as I was growing up and watching my own actions and being cognizant of how I was impacting the planet. You know, and I did not find environmental work, it found me, I like to say. So it was kind of kismet whenever I founded, my zero waste strategies consulting firm almost 13 years ago.
Just as a note, I find it really interesting that all three of you have strong experiences from childhood that then are, this brought you to somewhere now in your lives from those common experiences. So we'll come back to that because that's part of the back to basics. But I want to sort of just move out just for briefly before we come back into specifics to sort of a larger view of, say, our communities or the structure of our economies. Where should zero waste fit into our thinking? So when we're struggling to understand why our world looks like it does, or why there's so much waste, or why the structure of our lives looks like this, and how do we tackle that, it can be really overwhelming. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about what these types of societal basics are. Where does zero waste fit in that structure? Is there anyone who might want to start with that?
It depends on where you are. You have some states that have laws and legislation that help support that. So it makes it a bit easier to kind of reinforce and even educate about zero waste. And then you have states that are not as, legislatively savvy to support those initiatives. And so it just kind of depends on where you are. And like Stacy was saying, in your southern states, you have more petrochemical companies that have a stronghold within these areas. So it makes it a little bit more challenging to be able to get those initiatives and legislation passed. So it just depends on where you are and how much support you're getting from your state and even your local government to support those zero waste initiatives.
Stacy or Rebecca?
And yeah, here in Texas, we have over 200 landfills.
Oh, wow.
And we take in trash from other states as well. And I think that Texas is poised to be we could, if we really wanted to, and we had the political will to do so, we could be #1 in zero waste because we have so many resources coming into our state. And we could really push our economy and push green jobs at the local and county level. But again, there's that political will that environmental issues is, you know, some kind of bleeding heart liberal issue. No, the mercury is still in your water,
Yeah.
no matter what side of the aisle you stand on. And so, you know, for me, I really do think that having just knowing that statistic about how many landfills we have here in this state was a real eye-opener for me. When I found that out almost 2 decades ago, it really it floored me, and I just could not even hardly wrap my mind around it. But to me, that also says, oh, well, we've had a lot of conveniences since, you know, the turn of this last century and
Yeah.
mid-century, and we've just gotten lazy. Honestly, I think that there's a lot of people that really value convenience over being more resourceful.
And I think it's hard when you don't have that alternative, like if that's not something that you were exposed to. Rebecca, any thoughts on that from you?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. Really
Okay,
hard to
1,
be
2, 3.
I mean, I think, look, you know, as a society, we can aim for zero waste in terms of like not sending anything to landfill. And to, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, there's what we can do as individuals, there's what businesses need to do, there's what our governments need to regulate, and it's going to take action from all of us to really, you know, shift the dial. But, you know, as has been said, we have become a throwaway society, and we are consuming more resources than the earth can
Yes.
generate
Yeah.
each year. And the cheapest option, and really the option that our policies support and the underlying, the backbone of our capitalist society, is that buying more and more stuff and more packaging from all over the world is the cheapest often option. It's the norms. But everything we use, everything we purchase, everything we consume has a footprint, whether that's the, you know, the resources to extraction of those resources, the transport, the production, the use, and then the disposal. And there's costs everywhere. So for me, when I think about zero waste and the role of us as consumers and us as citizens, it's about really doing what we can in our own lives to be less wasteful. And I think being wasteful is a relatively new concept. Our ancestors weren't wasteful, and in many societies, they're still not as wasteful as I know we are in my country, in Australia. You know, we're throwing away 40% of the food that we're growing. And it is big it's such a big issue that I think for me, just breaking it down to really like lots of people, like we can't all do everything, but we can all do something. And the more that we all do what that something is in our own lives, and we start to shift the culture and make the choices we can in our own communities, is that lots of small changes add up to make a big difference. And it's not about a few people being zero waste and fitting their year's worth of waste in a mason jar and being perfect. You know, it's about lots of people doing what they can. And I think that's the importance of the work that we all do and months like this. And I think it's an important perspective to keep, that it's not about perfection and it's a journey.
Yeah, and following on that, and this is for Thomasina and then Stacy, you know, I think a lot of people, they don't think it's going to make a difference. They don't think that whatever little thing they do, it's not going to matter in the larger scope of things. Or they think alternatively, I can't do that much. So does it make a difference?
Yes, it absolutely makes a difference. Last summer, I was able to take some students to our materials recycling facility. just so they can see what recycling looks like in real time. And so when we arrived there, they was like, "Oh my goodness, it smells so bad here." And I'm like, "But it's a recycling center. There shouldn't be a smell here. So what's the problem?" So it was like people just throwing stuff. I say, yes, people are not recycling correctly. So once they got to see how everything is processed, when the truck comes in, how they dump all this waste on the floor, and how everything is sorted, they were able to be like, yeah, we need to do better. So literally the next day, they came in with metal water bottles. They were more conscious about even the water bottles that they were drinking it out of, to make sure that they put their top on their empty water bottle, because a cap is just as much plastic as the bottle itself. So just making little exposures like that made an impact on a whole class of students. And so now they're going home and telling parents, hey, we got to do this, or this is the right way to recycle. This is what we need to, do better. And to have them to come in the next day with metal water bottles, that was a real aha moment. Like, they got it.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. What about you, Stacy? Does it make a difference?
Thomasina. What's that?
Does it make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the whole education piece, and starting when you're young, you've already heard our three stories in the intro, starting when you're young and empowering younger people to take into account what they're bringing into their home, what they're bringing into school, what they're taking home with them, what happens to the materials that they're using within the home, what happens to, are they going in the right bin? If they do go in the right bin, are they clean and dry materials? And so there's a whole supply chain within the home of what's coming in and what's going out the back end to the recycle bin. So you can monitor that as well. And especially like Rebecca said, tackling that food waste within your own four walls is critical, because that is one of the top five. Landfills are one of the top five global gas emitters, gas emitters, because of the rotting food and yard waste in our landfills. And so we're not treating these materials with the respect that they deserve. And what it's doing in return is poisoning our air. And it is bringing forth these, massive cataclysmic weather events that we're experiencing all over the country, here in the US, all over the world. And it's a vicious cycle. So everybody does need to do something, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're looking for progress, not perfection, right? And we have the internet now. So back in the 80s, Gen X, where's my Gen X folks? We did not have internet. We we had to just kind of look at what our grandparents did, what our parents did, and now it's the other way around. We kind of forgot how that looked, and now you're Gen Z and your Gen Alpha, who is even more feral than Gen Z, I believe. I've got two nephews in Gen Alpha. They are just not having it, right? They're living in this doom scenario where they are absolutely fearful of what they're growing up into, what kind of world they're growing up into. And so we need to do our part. They're teaching us now. But we need to pick up the pace, and we need to hold corporate polluters accountable as well. Where is all this material going? And are they doing assessments within their own business structure, their own operations, to find out where can they reduce their waste, their purchasing, their dumpsters, all of that comes with a big price. And if we don't take care of it now, it's going to be even more costly.
Absolutely.
So I want to kind of bring it back a little bit to the concept of zero waste. So I think some people think of zero waste as, well, that's a luxury, or perhaps more, that's an affluent person could do that. But maybe we could talk a little bit about how incorporating zero waste principles and ideas back into your home is actually going back to basics. It's resource saving, it's money saving habits. It's things that people who don't have a larger income do already, and they may do that without any kind of recognition. And they're doing zero waste, but that's not what it's called. So I wonder if you've got some experiences or stories around that you might want to share. Just that zero waste is really for everyone. It's going back to a way of doing things that's just, it's already there. We just have to rediscover that and incorporate it into our lives. And it does save us resources. Maybe Rebecca?
I mean, yeah, it's a good point. I think it's like any label, right? It can mean different things to different people. And I think when the popularization of the term really took off, 10 years ago or so, the symbol of that was the affluent Western white person that could fit their year's worth of landfill of trash in a mason jar. And but the term aside is, it's a terrible thing to think of if we're wealthy enough we can just waste more, like actually being resourceful, being less wasteful is something that, as I said, previous generations and in many cultures is still the norm. And I do struggle with labels. I do struggle with the zero waste term. I do struggle with plastic free. But I just want to share one story with you, we started Plastic Free July in Australia in 2011. Single-use plastics wasn't even a term then. Mm-hmm. And, it grew, this movement grew, and the zero waste movement grew. And it started with 40 people in Australia, and then it slowly spread around the world. And I think it was about 2018, and UN had World Environment Day on the 5th of June. The host country was India, and the theme was Beat Plastic Pollution. And all the images that they were sharing were littered beaches, right? No one likes to see a littered beach. Everyone looks at that picture and says, and feels good about that, and doesn't feel good about that, right? Everyone worries about the wildlife being harmed. But when you're buying food for your family or getting something to eat for lunch, you're not thinking about the littered beach, right? And lots of people in India hadn't even seen the beach. And I was talking to a friend that I'd met in New Delhi who is a journalist. And I said to her, we've been sharing lots of photos that we've gathered from Australia of people doing Plastic Free July. Could we get some more photos from your community? Because she'd been doing it there. And so she took a series of photos of her friend and her neighbours that were shopping in the markets and taking their own bags and using water bottles and reusable straws and all of those things. And we started sharing them through our social media. And we had a 300% increase that year in people from India signing up to Plastic Free July. And one of the really interesting pieces of feedback that she got was, I thought that zero waste was for young white women in New York. I didn't realize that it was people like me, right? And that's the message that she'd been getting in New Delhi from her friends. And that really taught me something. And now, people are taking part in Plastic Free July from 190 countries. We had people doing it in Ukraine. We have people, from bomb shelters. We have people in war-torn countries in Africa. We have people everywhere around the world doing it because they care. They want to live in a cleaner environment. They don't want this problem to leave this problem for the kids and future generations. They know about the human health impact. So it's not like, do people care about it? It's like, what are we actually doing about it? And of course, we can't all do everything, but I think the more that we share ideas and stories and solutions of what people are doing around the world, and showing that it looks like lots of different things in different places, whether you can buy in bulk or carry your own bag, or you've got a bag ban or a deposit return scheme or whatever it is. I think the more that we share that and we show that as new social norms in a culture where I feel like sometimes single-use plastics is almost aspirational, I think the more that we make this as zero waste rather than a concept, but actually an action that we can all take part in.
Mm-hmm. Thomasina, what are your thoughts on zero waste and how that can be money saving, resource saving, and kind of bring that into our lives more?
I think we need to have conversations with people who are doing it well now.
Mm-hmm.
People who are, doing the basic things of living and not buying so much and not utilizing, resource after resource. And it's like Stacy said before, plastic has made us lazy. And so it's convenient to grab a, plastic container and go about your business and not worry about the end of life of that plastic. So having conversations with people that are doing or have best practices and figuring out how to make that a scale wide for communities. So listening to people who have had to be resilient for a lack of resources because they don't have the money to just go and buy, a one-use recycle every time. So having conversations with people who are doing it well, with the back to basics. And I think, like Rebecca said, having titles on everything. Everything doesn't have to have a title. We just really need to get back to basics and show people what that looks like and what that is as it relates to recycling.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can, show more pictures, like Rebecca said, from different societies, different countries, and show people that, yeah, it's somebody just like you that's, doing something really simple to get back to basics.
And Stacy, how about you? I mean, what are your thoughts about changing the culture to incorporate zero waste without it having to be that? How do we get value in, or show the value of zero waste practices or getting back to basics to people?
Well, I think you said it best earlier whenever you introduced the question regarding putting money back in your pocket. If we're more resourceful, we're more resilient, and we're not relying on, brand new gadgets every 6 months, with that to me is saving the money that you need to put toward your college fund, your kids' college fund, right? That's saving the money that you need in order to put toward your groceries for the week. So for me, making sure that people understand that the biggest, newest, flashy thing out there on the supermarket or on the, the Best Buy shelf or Walmart shelf or whatnot is it's there for show.
Yeah.
It's just a show. And, when people can take a look at their actual budget and look back maybe a month, 2, 3 months, and see what they actually spent their money on, I think that they would be pretty appalled to and I know Christmas is coming up right around the corner. I know a lot of people have children who just can't live without the newest thing, right? So you have to be choosy, a little bit more choosy about what you're putting your money into. And these corporations who are making these products that are on our shelves, have you vetted them? Do you really know what they stand for? Have you looked at their sustainability report over the last 5 years? Are you that savvy of a shopper, or are you just going out there and getting what makes you feel good in the moment? So we need to make sure that we're investing our dollars in companies that want to protect us as their customer base and who are showing the numbers, the metrics. They've got the operational improvements in place. They've got the goals. They've publicly stated them. They are putting that into their business proposals to their investors and their shareholders, and they're making their employees proud to actually work there. So with our dollar, how are we holding the corporations accountable? And it's always going to come back to the corporations. You and I can do so much at a local, home level, very hyper local level, in our communities as well, educating our government officials and helping get legislation passed. But until we rein in the pollution of the corporations, it's going to be an uphill battle for all of us.
Thank you.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Stacy is saying, and I think that's one of the biggest issues, especially in underserved communities, because they are, like she said, butted up against those, billion-dollar companies, and they're left to do all of the work of the cleanup of the byproducts of what they're making. And so until we as consumers start to hold big corporations, we just had a conversation yesterday about the banks that actually, fund these companies that are polluting, our communities. And so until we as consumers can hold them accountable, and, start hitting them in their pockets and, taking our money back, stop shopping with certain brands or certain companies that are not, in our best interest of sustainability. So until we as consumers can come together in that way, it's definitely going to always be a struggle.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Rebecca, so kind of a two-parter. Why are we here now? Like, why are we saying let's get back to basics, or why should we go back to these basic habits? I mean, I think we know the answer, but it's often good to articulate why this is happening now. And then also, if there are people here who haven't started, they're thinking about it, they're just curious, what are some basic things that they could do to start exploring this in their own lives? So why now, and what can they do?
For me, the why now is because for me, it's the only way that I know how to make change. It's making change in my own life. But there's always something that we can do. And so whether that's remembering reusables, water bottles or cups or bags or whatever, trying to buy loose produce or things without the packaging, buying what you need, giving gifts at Christmas if you celebrate that aren't ending up in landfill a month later, but are gifts of experiences or time or whatever it is that it is your values. When lots of people do that, it makes change. And I think that, we know from Plastic Free July, it's grown from this 40 people in my hometown to 174 million people around the world, avoiding 2.4 million tonnes of waste. And that's more than the world's biggest cleanups combined. And I think why that's important is that, of course, that's, we're never going to get there through behaviour change alone to zero waste. But when we start to act together as a community, then we put pressure on business to regulate and government, business to take responsibility and government to legislate. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. And, we're still not quite there yet, but there has been a lot of progress towards a global treaty to end plastic pollution. That would not have happened. Governments didn't wake up one day and said, oh, we need to do this. It has come from this scaffolding of grassroots community change, building this upwards pressure. And, whenever I've seen progressive policies introduced, whether that's bans of single-use plastics or something like an extended producer responsibility scheme, like a deposit return scheme on beverage containers. It has come from community pressure. So I think, for me, it's about never underestimating the power of doing what we can in our own communities, voting with our dollar and making these choices and working together. I think, that's
Okay.
there's so much that needs to happen, but I think for me that's the place to
Got to start
start.
somewhere, right? Thomasina, why now? And is there something that somewhere somebody could start, or where should they start?
Why now? If we start to just really look at our overall health, based off of our consumption of what we're using, from plastics, it's imperative that we start to do a self-evaluation. And starting this work, I made an evaluation at the beginning of the year, and I was like, you know what? I got a lot of plastic in here. And so I consciously made the choice to remove a lot of the plastic containers that I had in my home. And I started to buy the glass containers, which made it a lot more feasible for me to do meal preps, and to not overcook, so that I'm not being wasteful in that way. But now is more important than ever because, like Stacy said, Gen Alpha is really not playing any games when it comes to recycling and, reusing and getting back to basics. So for us to look back at how our grandparents did things and to even kind of help foster their passion about, doing things in a way that is back to basics. We just need to be more collective and collaborative in doing that. And so just being observant of what it is that you're doing yourself. And like Stacy said before, what's coming into your home and what's going out is imperative, and somebody's watching that. And so if you're saying that, you're doing this thing and, people are watching, well, she doesn't recycle, she doesn't do this, it's almost like a ripple effect. So if you care enough, somebody else is going to be like, oh, I need to do that. If you don't care, it's like, well, what do I need to do it for? So it's a ripple effect. So being conscious of what you're doing as an individual can get us back to basics. And now is more important than ever, especially since the dismantling of the EPA, other organizations that help to protect us in a way that is important for all of us to have a good quality of life.
Yeah. And just something you said sparked this thought. Just the idea of the young people too. I mean, we in the middle, we're the bridge between what our grandparents knew and this younger generation. So there's a respect too when
Absolutely.
the connection between the children and our ancestors. So I really liked that idea. Stacy, this is our final with you, and then I'm going to open it up to Q&A with our audience. But why now? And is there a place for people to start?
Why now? From my perspective, we're looking at a 5-alarm fire here. Our planet is on fire. We have an administration right now that is completely gutting every agency possible that would actually protect human health, public safety, the medical, establishment as well. And there was a study done probably a decade ago that I read that when you have a trashy neighborhood, it's psychological. Yeah. Other people tend to just keep throwing trash because that's what everybody else is doing.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and this was not, in like neighborhoods where homes were, these were in local parks. in a county region or maybe statewide, and I can't remember what state it was, but it showed that it was psychological. It was, well, if they're gonna trash the place, you think I'm gonna clean a bathroom?
Right.
No, that's not my job. Nobody's paying me to do this, right? So I don't have to put my stuff in the right bin either. If they're not going to do it. So there's that lack of accountability where that's why now. And here in Texas, like Thomasina was saying, we're talking about these plastics, and Rebecca's entire campaign is around refusing plastic waste. In Texas, Diane Wilson is a fourth generation shrimper down in the Galveston Lavaca Bay area, and she sued Formosa Plastics for releasing millions of tiny plastic nurdles into Lavaca Bay where she has to shrimp.
Yeah.
And she won a $50 million award settlement against Formosa by the EPA, by the federal government. And it was the biggest payout any single, resident or even organization has ever gotten from an environmental suit like that.
Yeah.
And guess what she did with it? She paid it forward and she invested that into her community.
Absolutely.
So, people like that who are ready to go out on a limb, she did a food and water fast for many, many, many days, just to draw attention to the Lavaca Bay area, in the Galveston area. So, people can do a lot. That's kind of an extreme, if you want to do that, go for it. I'm going to rally my support around it. But something as simple as picking up the phone and calling your Congress member. I'm not sure if folks on the call are aware, but there's the No Time to Waste Act, and that's HR 2883. And they can call their lawmakers at the federal level, call your congressman, your rep, and say, I support this, and I'd like for you to do the same. There's also the Reduce Food Loss and Waste Act, that's S835. You can call your senators at the federal level as well. So just 2 phone calls, would be something that's making your stamp or putting your stamp of approval onto a piece of legislation that we need to move forward desperately, because we're looking at our economy right now. There's not much job growth. We've got inflation out the wazoo, and zero waste is a job driver. It's a green economy driver. And if you're burying everything in a landfill or you're just burning it off in an incinerator, that's lost jobs.
Yeah.
That's cash in your trash, literally. So we need to have these pieces of legislation that can guide state governments and local governments on how to implement these waste diversion protocols on an even level.
It's funny that you mentioned Formosa, Stacy, because we are fighting them now.
Yeah.
They just applied for a wastewater permit to dump their plastic waste into a bayou that runs in the park behind my community and outlets into the Mississippi River. Because of what's going on in Washington, they don't have to notify us anymore or let us know what's going on. It's just so happened we had an environmental group that was watching their website, and they literally posted the meeting to oppose them the day before. So there were only 5 people there. So again, as consumers, as communities, we have to stand together and let these big corporations know you can't just pollute where we live and think it's okay.
And they'll have their meeting at 12 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
To make sure nobody shows up.
All right. Well, I want to thank all 3 of you. I could go on for another hour. I'm just like, eating it up. But I would like to open it up to questions if we have anyone here tonight who would like to ask some questions. If you can click the react button on the bottom and raise your hand, and then Myrna can call on you.
Hey, Elisa, before we do that, we actually have 2 questions directly from YouTube, and they've been waiting very patiently.
Oh, sure. Let's take those.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Thomasina, Stacy, and Rebecca. Very inspiring, and I think what we're talking about is so important. I I'm a first generation American, and so I just always think about what my parents did when we had nothing, coming from another country and trying to furnish a household and have parents in ESL classes at night and 4 children in elementary school, and how much sewing and cooking and food prep and growing our own meant so much to us. To bring our practices over from Southeast Asia was vital to our survival in the United States. And I think it will be vital again to our survival as a nation in the coming months. So thank you so much for your contributions, very inspiring. We do have a question for Rebecca from our live YouTube, and it's this: how can we incorporate more Indigenous voices in the movement? So that's to you, Rebecca.
Great question. So we've been doing, it's a challenge. We're a very small not-for-profit in Australia, but we have been actively in some of our, in a lot of our work this year is trying to bring voices from our participants and communities around the world. Specifically, we've been working more in the Asia Pacific region. So we established a youth fellowship this year, and we have young people from 23 countries in the region who we're working together to build capacity and to support them to engage in their communities and also collect and share their stories, because there is no one size fits all solution. So through programs like that and other work we're doing in the Philippines, Indonesia and Vietnam in particular, we're collecting ideas and stories and solutions from there. So we're always, through all our work, looking for those ideas and those stories so people can see and be inspired and also be empowered and think, oh yeah, that's somebody that looked like me, or that's an idea that could work in my community. And the great thing is I popped one of our stories into the chat before, and we'll share something like somebody's doing something in a hospital, or it might be their own lives, and then we have people from other hospitals around the world saying, oh, we want more information because we could do that too. So I think it's not just important in terms of being equitable and having other voices, it's actual real knowledge. Like, no one's got all the answers, but together we've got lots of solutions. So it's just critical in order to tackle these problems.
May I counter just a bit? Because I think the Indigenous communities do have all the answers. They've been here for tens of thousands of years in these countries, and people who have my skin tone, we are very much the environmental movement, especially in the US, has been whitewashed. And I feel that, we come in on this savior complex, but we're not looking to the Indigenous communities. It's not about, at least in the US, it's not about folding them into our movement. It's about finding them where they're at and listening to what they are doing and saying.
Absolutely.
And how they act, what their traditions are, what their protocols are. Yes, zero waste is a business efficiency concept, but it all stems from the Indigenous communities that were there before, people that look like me stormed the beaches, essentially.
And that's what I meant by having the conversation with people that are doing it well. They've been doing it for centuries. And so leaving them out of the conversation, finding out what those best practices were and could still be, is going to be essential to us even getting to a zero waste, because that's how they lived. They looked at materials from the beginning of that life cycle to the end of that life cycle. And so they also practiced a 7-generation principle from the time that they received a material to what it would look like 7 generations later. And so we're not doing that. We don't even know what the end life cycle is of the plastic that we use every day. So just for them to have that mindset of, if we're going to use this, how is this going to impact 7 generations?
Doesn't a plastic fork have about a 12-minute lifespan?
If we wish.
Myrna, was there another question from YouTube?
Yes, there is. This is directly, thank you very much for your answers. I'm first generation Filipino, so I really, really appreciate what you're saying about how we have the tools because we survived and are thriving. And I know, Stacy, you were very moved by Rose Red Elk at the recent conference on how she blessed the conference with her opening remarks and what it takes for the land. And as an aside, I read a terrific book on the Donner Party and how in the background, all the indigenous people survived. It was quite extraordinary. So there's a little something there. Here is the question from YouTube, and it's for Stacy. How do we prepare for climate resilience? It seems like we are not prepared for climate disasters.
Yeah, we're not prepared. You know, I think somebody had said it earlier, as far as learning to grow your own food is really critical, I feel. Maybe not being so reliant on our electronic devices. I know that's really hard in this day and age, but if the grid goes down, so does everything else, right?
Yep.
So how are you going to prepare to conduct business? I mean, you might have to get on the Pony Express or something to get your mail across town, but you know, it's really difficult to even think about it right now, but people are going through it every single day. I mean, you look at in the war in Gaza, in Serbia, and you know, Congo. You look at these natural disasters that are coming through, and people just are not prepared. They don't think it's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
You got mass migrations from one part of the world to another part of the world because of the climate crisis. You have entire islands that are sinking into the ocean, and people are having to abandon their lands for, you know, for generations that have lived there prior. So it is about looking outside of our current systems and how do we rely on each other? Are you making connections with your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors' names? Do you know their kids' names? Do you have their phone number? Can you knock on their door? Do you have that kind of relationship? Can you share resources if everything just goes you know, away, and the way of life that you know it, you know, those are building that community and having that mutual aid structure set up and being part of it, not sitting behind your computer anymore, getting out into your community, go to your church groups, you know, find those communities, those small nonprofit advocacy groups that are demanding more of their public officials, their elected officials, who are doing the door-to-door work, that are canvassing their neighborhoods, that are getting out there and electing people who actually care and can put a stop to this in those positions of power. There's a lot that can be done, but you have to do it incrementally and leading up to a potential disaster that may come and affect your community. It's just about thinking outside of what are my normal comfort zone.
Yeah.
If I didn't have all these comforts around me, what would I do? And start making a plan with your family. So that's about all I can give on that. Definitely get you a survival book.
Yeah. And just to kind of tap into that as well, like you said, cashing your trash, with growing your own food or having your own home garden, composting is something that is severely overlooked. There's a teacher here that he teaches composting, and it's literally black gold. Like, once you have the composting, you can use that, you can sell it, you can like you say, create community gardens to build that resiliency within your community. So thinking, like Stacy said, outside of the box of things that we would do if we were to go offline. What would you do if we were to go offline? Because everything now is so contingent on electronics, but where's that human connection? And that's a part of getting back to basics.
We have a note from Rebecca that she has to leave in just a moment. So if you would like to say thank you, or Rebecca, if you have anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for that. Yeah, just I would just encourage everyone. I thank my fellow speakers. There's so much knowledge and there's so much passion, I think, in this room and this conversation. And Thomasina, I'm such a fan of composting and worm farming, and there is just, so much that we can do. And I just encourage everyone to just be inspired by what you've learned today, and and try and, if you're very new to this, not try and think you have to be perfect or do everything,
Right.
but just start with one thing, whether it's your reusables, or trying out compost, or even just having a conversation with somebody you live with, or a friend or family, and about what you've learned, and maybe deciding one thing you can do together, because that's really the basis of sustainable long-term change. So thanks, everybody, and sorry I've got to go.
Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thanks. Bye.
Stacy and Thomasina, I don't know if we have any more questions, Myrna. I don't know that we would get to all of them, but if we have maybe 5 minutes, we could take one more.
We do have a question. Let's see. And this is from Semien. Is that correct? I hope I'm saying that, and I don't want to insult anyone. Can you speak more to how does plastic impact our personal health issues and our bodies? Is that a message that can get more people committed to using less plastics? I can say a little bit, and I'll put a note in about a screening for a movie. But we'll defer to Thomasina and Stacy. There are public health studies that are now showing the levels of microplastics that are affecting every system of the human body, neurologically, cardiovascularly, pulmonary, your skeletal system. Microplastics are absolutely invasive. So I'll let you guys go with that.
The way that we approach it from Clean Green Neighborhood Alliance is that we speak from the 4 pillars of sustainability. And like she said, it attacks all areas of our bodies. For women, it can send women into menopause 2 to 4 years sooner than what they would normally be. It can impact your mental cognition once it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So we're starting to see more and more impact from microplastics. And so not even knowing that you can have that tested when you go to the doctor. You can have your endocrine system tested to find out how much microplastics you have inside of you and what is causing what impact it has on your body. So with one of the initiatives that we do, we have something that we call Mental Health and Mingle. So every 3rd Wednesday of the month, we go to different communities, different areas of the community, and we speak about mental health. And we approach it from the microplastic standpoint, because again, not just talking about, putting, a bottle in a recycle bin, how all of that is circular and connectivity to us. And so when you speak about the 4 pillars of sustainability, from environmental, human, economic, and social, all of that becomes circular and connectivity as it relates to our health, to our finance, to our engagement with one another, and even our environment. So there are, like Myrna said, a lot of studies coming out now, and we're starting to see that impact. And if we really think about it, this generation of young people are probably the most toxic in our history, because not only the foods that they eat, The clothes that they wear, the shoes that they wear are all emitting some type of toxins into their bodies, from their Crocs to their sweatshirts, to their Takis and sodas that they drink. Everything has some form of plastic. And because we are not doing a great job of recycling, microplastics is in everything that we do. Everything that we have, from our land to our water, our food, microplastics is everywhere.
Stacy, last thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Thomasina said, and I wish we could have heard it, from Rebecca's perspective as well, being a leading campaigner globally of refusing plastics. But yeah, I mean, check your labels. Something that you can do is check your labels.
Yeah.
There are our clothing is plastic. That's getting into our bodies. Even if you wash, like fleece, a lot of
Yep.
fleece these days is
It's
made of
plastic.
old plastic bottles, right?
Yep.
It's woven from plastics. So there is a recycling and reuse aspect to that, but you're putting it on your body. It's also getting into the water whenever it goes through your washing machine and it drains out all those little
Yeah.
microplastics. And I really want to caution against compostable plastics as well. So when you see on your store shelf, this is a compostable plastic,
Yeah.
it's still a plastic. It's going to fracture in the sunlight. It's going to, be very problematic if it gets into the water as well. So a lot of people want to do the right thing. They want to get this compostable wares, and if it's compostable plastic, though, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
And you know what? Composters just don't want that. They do not want compostable plastics in
Nope.
their streams. It contaminates them. It fractures. And so check your labels. Do your research on, just the purity of kind of what you're putting in your body. There's a lot of zero waste stores that are actually popping up all across the country, where you can bring in your own containers, and you can, of course, ditch the plastic bags. You can bring in your own bags, but having those glass mason jars, like we were saying, way back whenever it was just the norm, that's just what you did with your grandparents, right? Back to those basics, and refilling rather than buying new and buying in plastic. So yeah, check those labels, check your food labels as well, and make sure that you're putting your money where your values lie.
Right.
Well, I want to thank Thomasina and Stacy, and of course Rebecca, so much for being here tonight. This was a really great discussion, and I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions. I really do think we could go on all night, but thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you here, and it was a great conversation. And I'm sure the audience feels the same way. And so just one note for everyone tonight. Next week, we have our week 3 of the interview series, and that will be youth-led community advocacy. And we have 3 wonderful young people coming to join us just like this to talk about their efforts in their own communities. So we hope you'll join us for that. And thank you again to our guests tonight. It was